Hi, I'm Nate from Magnanimous Media, and I'll be teaching you how to repair an Arri light, whether it be from the switch, plug, or inside the light. A very common problem with Arri lights are the wire's connections at the major stress points, which, if damaged, will cause the light to have an intermittent signal. The copper cores inside tend to break when the wire has been subject to frequent use. A good way to investigate where the problem persists is to plug the light in and find where the light loses and gains the connection. This is done simply by moving and pressing the wire into itself to try to regain the connection. For tools, you'll need a cable stripper, Phillips head screwdriver, small flathead screwdriver, small Phillips head screwdriver, crimper, needle nose, and a Leatherman. For parts, you will need amp ring terminals and light switch wire sockets. If the problem is located at the switch, you'll want to start by unscrewing the 4 screws that hold the switch housing into place. After the housing for the switch is off, you'll want to examine your ground, positive, and negative wires. The ground wire will be the wire connected to the terminal block, the white box with the screw fasteners. And the positive and negative wires will have the wire sockets connected to the switch terminals. You'll want to unscrew the ground wire from the terminal block and pull the wire sockets off of the switch terminals. When you do so, you'll notice that there are 2 90-degree connectors on the wire sockets. You'll want to pull both of those connectors out of the sockets and hold on to them. They will be reused. What you are looking for in the wire is a soft spot, indicating a broken copper core. Once you have found a soft spot in the wire, you'll want to cut the wire before the break in the copper core. After you have cut the wire, you'll need to strip the wire of the outer insulation, a good 1 to 2 inches, exposing the 3 wires. Once the 3 wires are exposed, you'll want to take off a 1/4 inch of each of the wires. You'll want to make sure that you don't strip off too much of the outer insulation, because there should be no copper core exposed on the outside of the terminal block or the wire sockets. It is also good to take each end of the wire and twist them in your fingers, so it creates a stronger bond for the wire. Taking your positive and negative wires, you want to attach the new wire sockets to the wires. This is done by simply placing the sockets onto the wire, making sure there is no copper core on the outside of the socket. Using your crimp tool, crimp down the wire socket to the wire at the small tubular base. After the positive and negative wires have been crimped down, you'll want to take the 90-degree terminal connectors and slide them into your new wire sockets and reattach it to the switch terminals. After you've reattached the wire sockets to the switch's terminals, you'll want to attach the ground wire to the terminal block. Simply place the ground wire inside of the block so there's no exposed inner copper core. Then, using a small flathead screwdriver, tighten down the screw fasteners. Once all the new wire sockets are back on the switch terminals and the ground is secured in the terminal block, you'll need to put the housing back on the switch. When placing the housing back on, make sure that there's enough of the outer black insulation being fed into the housing. There will need to be a good amount of insulation so the housing can clamp down on it, creating a safety chain for the inside components. If the problem persists at the housing of the light, you'll need to find out where the problem is located. You'll need to loosen the yoke and lift open the top of the light, exposing the bulb, reflector, and the electronics. When working inside the light, it is good to take out the reflector and the bulb to give more room inside, and as well protect them from being damaged. To take out the reflector, you'll need a small Phillips head screwdriver, and you will need to unfasten the screws and lift the reflector out. For the bulb, make sure you are always using gloves. You will then want to unfasten the ground from the bolt and the positive and negative wires from the terminal block that is attached to the back of the light. Simply unfasten the nut on the bolt to take the ground wire off. You can move the ground wire that is connected to the inside of the light out of the way for now. For the terminal block, you'll need to unscrew the bolt on the back side of the light. After the block has been loosened from the light, you will want to take a small flathead screwdriver and loosen the positive and negative wires from the terminal block. As well, there's a safety chain strip of metal that goes across the wire at the entrance of the light. You'll need to unscrew the 2 screws that fasten it down and hold on to those pieces. After all the wires have been loosened, you'll need to find the source of the damaged wire. You'll want to press down on each of the wires to reveal a break in the copper core. Once you've found the problem, cut the wire. You will then need to strip the outer insulation from the wire. You will need much more of the outer insulation stripped so the positive and negative wires can reach the terminal block at the back of the light. A good 3 inches is suitable to reach. You will then need to strip down each of the wire's insulation about 1/4 inch. As well, it is good measure to twist the copper cores in your fingers so they have a strong bond. After all the wires have been stripped, you'll then need to take an amp-ring terminal and attach it to the ground wire. You will do so simply by sliding the amp-ring terminal onto the wire, making sure that the wire doesn't have any exposed copper core at the base of the amp-ring terminal. Then, take your crimping tool and crimp the base of the amp-ring terminal onto the wire. You will then need to fasten the ground wire down to the bolt. Take the ground wire from the light and place it on the bottom. Then take the ground from the wire and place it on top. Using the nut, place it on the bolt and securely fasten down the 2 grounds together. For the positive and negative wires, you'll need to fasten them into the terminal block, making sure that none of the copper core is exposed outside of the block. You will then need to use a small flathead screwdriver and fasten down the screw fasteners on the terminal block. After the positive and negative wires have been securely fastened within the terminal block, you will need to reattach the terminal block to the back of the light. You can do so by placing the bolt through the back of the light while making sure the nut is inside the terminal block. You can then start to screw the bolt into the nut until securely fastened. You should place the reflector back inside the light to make sure no wires are interfering with the light's spot and flood functions. After the ground, positive, and negative wires have all been securely fastened, take the safety chain strip of metal and securely fasten the wire down. When doing so, make sure there's enough of the wire's outer insulation for the safety chain to grip onto. This will ensure that the connections inside will not be damaged if the wire is tugged on. Once everything is back together, put a bulb back in the light and test it out. When fixing a connection problem at the plug, you'll first need to take off the housing for the plug. You will then need to see where the problem persists by feeling the wires for any damaged or broken copper cores. Once you've found the problem, cut the wire and strip the outside insulation a good inch. You will then want to strip each of the wire's insulation a good 1/4 inch, and as well twisting the copper core to create a strong bond for the wire. You will then want to place each of the wires into the appropriate screw fastener location.
The green to the green screw, the white to the silver screw, and the black to the bronze screw.
Making sure that none of the inside copper core is exposed outside of the screw fasteners. After the 3 wires have been fastened, screw the housing back onto the plug and test the connection out. Hopefully this video helped you to repair your Arri light. Thanks for watching.